Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to part one of my tutorial for the link pages coding assignment that's part of the Easy University tutorial in my Django course. And this assignment corresponds pretty closely with chapter 6 of the Pinkham book, Django Unleashed. And the chapter in the Pinkham book has a really long title, and in my version of it, we just call it link pages. So we've created a lot of pages, both we have a list page for each of our model classes. We have a detail page for each of our model classes, but they're not integrated. They don't have all the links that we're showing on them are dead ends. We haven't populated the href attributes of the anchor elements, the A elements. Okay? So we're going to do that. Before we do that, we are going to do a thing that Pinkham did in his tutorial. He did it in chapter 5. And that's the following. Right now, when we go to our server and we enter the numerical equivalent of the domain name, right? Which is our local host IP address plus port 8000. Instead of going to some default page, we get a 404 page not found. And of course, that's not polite behavior. So what we want to do is this URL that is just the domain name is sometimes called the root URL. Okay? It's just the domain name, or in this case, the numeric equivalent. And what we want to do is we want to redirect it to go somewhere appropriate. Okay? And that really depends on your application. Okay? So let's get to work on that. All right. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, let's work from the beginning of the workflow back. Let's do this frontwards. So in urls.py, okay, we're going to need some kind of a path, some kind of URL pattern to catch the URL pattern. And what's that going to be? Well, it's a very simple path because it's essentially the empty string. Okay, let's get this code looking a little bigger here. Yep. So it's essentially the empty string. So we're going to say here, if the URL path it doesn't have any path after the domain name, then we want to use a view called redirect root view. So it's the root URL. We are redirecting it, and we want a view to do it. Okay. Now, I'm just going to warn you, we refactor this at least once before we're done with the project. So this is a kind of a temporary solution, given the tools that we've learned so far. Okay, but I think it lasts us for several weeks. Okay, so this URL pattern is under the directory that has the name of our project. It's the top level URL configuration module. All right. So if we're going to have a view, it should be in a corresponding views.py that's in the same place, but we don't have one. So let's create one. So we want a new Python file called views. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And what kind of a view do we want? And I'm going to say we want a simple view. Okay. Now we've done two kinds of views so far. We've done function-based views. We learned them first, and they are more simple than class-based views. So we're just going to do a pretty simple function-based view. So here's the function that we want to add right here. Okay, let's make that a little bigger so we can see it. And we need an import. Okay, I'm going to copy the import from my already baked version. So this is in a module called, or it's in a package called Django Shortcuts, and it's called redirect. Okay. And all we do is we say return, redirect, and then we give the name of the URL pattern. In this case, I've decided that we want to redirect to section list. Okay? And this is just really a decision that the users are going to make. And I'm sort of the head user here. And so I want to go to the section list because this application is kind of for me. Okay. I'm eventually going to build this into something that's useful for me in my everyday life. And the first question that I would have would be, okay, which section do I want to work with? And typically I'd be looking for one that I'm currently teaching. So that's how I decided to do that. Okay. Well, that's good. Section list URL pattern in course info. And of course, if we go to course info and urls.py, we'll see that section list URL pattern is going to take us to the view section list as view, and that's going to get us to where we want to go. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's test that out. So when we click on this, we are unable to connect. That's not good. Okay, let me solve that, and I'll be right back. Forgot one import. Okay, so here's a problem that didn't really pop up until I stopped the server and tried to start it again. So it says that the name redirect root view is not defined. It's because I don't have a proper import within my urls.py. So how could I make that happen? Well, I could say this. I could say the import would be from .views import redirect root view. All right, that's going to solve that. Sounds good. All right. So we're going to save that. And you can see that, okay, now my server really did start up. That's nice. And we'll click on this. And we go right to section list. It's that easy. All right. So one architectural decision you're going to need to make for each domain name that you have is where's it going? Okay, if you only have one app under that domain name, well then where's it going within that app? Right now we only have one app. And Easy University is really a single app. But if you have several apps that are running under this domain name, you not only have to decide which page it's going to go to, but which page in which app, right? So it was pretty easy for us because we had the Prime user handy, and he knew where he wanted to go. All right. So what's the next part of what we're going to do in this part one? Well, we're going to populate the href attributes, and let's do it in an orderly way. All of our pages are using as a parent page. They're inheriting from base.html. So let's take a look at base.html. Okay, here it is. And when you look at this, we have these links that come up at the top in the nav section, which is going to be eventually it's going to be a nav bar. Now it's just a bunch of links in an unordered list. And we have to find a way to populate them. So let's see how we're going to populate them. Okay, so here's the code that we're going to put in. And it's pretty basic code. It looks like this. I took this out of my already baked version, as I'm apt to do. Okay, so we have a code bit that goes into a template. So it's going inside of a curly percent set of braces. And then we just have 2 parts, URL space, and then the name of the URL pattern in this case, I put it in single quotes. And single quotes really seem to be the Django style. Okay, so when you look at the Pinkham book, you look at the Django documentation. Django Python programmers seem to like single quotes, the apostrophes. And that's why I've kind of been following that. Okay, and so this is just the name of a URL pattern, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, so having done that, we should be able to go to our page, right? And at least the instructor's link for this ought to be active. So let's click on the instructor's link. And there we go. We go to the instructor list. Okay, so let's do one more. Okay, let's do the section list. All right, shouldn't be too hard to do, because what I'm going to have you do is just clone these entries from one to the next. So we're just going to copy it. We're going to plunk it down into sections, right? And instead of saying course info instructor list URL pattern, we're going to say section list URL pattern. Section list URL pattern. And that's what we want. So that looks good. So let's go test that. So when we click on the link that just uses the domain name, it routes it to the section list. Okay, so let's go to the instructor list. We'll click on the instructor link. Okay, and now we've populated the href in the sections link, and let's see that we can get back there. And we do. We go to section list. So I've come to the end of my part of part one. I've done instructors and sections, and I'm going to want you to populate these href attributes appropriately for courses, semesters, students, and registrations. And of course, remember to test them. And then I'll see you in part two. Bye till then.